All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be breaking down the core plays here for Week 9. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we actually just got a core value play for the week due to some news in Jacksonville, guys. And so let's start with that news, and then we'll break down the player that we're going to be getting to as a result. So we do know that Travis Hunter is going to be out this week. He has been placed on the IR, so it's going to be out for 4 weeks. This was actually going to be a spot I was considering Travis Hunter to be probably not a core play because we couldn't rely on whether or not the snaps would be there for him. But I do want to call it his production over the last 2 weeks, 14 targets and 7 targets. We also know that Brian Thomas Jr. is questionable to play in this game. I am expecting him to play at this point, but it wouldn't be shocking if he did end up sitting as well. Again, expecting him to play. So guys, in their last game, Parker Washington, who's going to be the core play, ended up playing 88% of the snaps, outsnapped Brian Thomas Jr. He, through times this season, I would say majority of the time this far this season, has looked like their best receiver and just passing weapon in general, especially with Brendan Strange getting injured. On the season, he has only averaged 52% of the snaps, but he's seen a few weeks now where he's gotten over 70% of the snaps. So in week 3, he got 70% of snaps, week 4, 85%, and then week 7, 88%. So in week 4, he didn't do anything, but in week 3, guys, 11 targets in that game, and then in week 7, 10 targets in that game. Now, we do know that Trevor Lawrence has struggled to throw the football. That is true, but if we can begin a guy that has the potential to go for 10 targets in this game, that is the spot where I want to be targeting. And on top of that, he gets a very good matchup here going against the Las Vegas Raiders. Guys, the Raiders on average give up 39.6 DFS points per game to opposing receivers. And so if he cannot hit value, well, likely being on the field for 80% of the snaps, then, well, probably Trevor Lawrence just had a terrible game. And due to that news just breaking, we're not going to have the Parker Washington updates just yet, but I do think it's worth calling out, guys. Travis Hunter is projected, or was projected, 11 points. If we can get that at Parker Washington at his price tag, that ends up being absolutely a steal there at his price tag. And again, great matchup. And then the next core play is going to be an easy one. He's going to be chalk as well. Rashid Rice, guys, to get 18 DFS points at his price tag is what he's projected to get. I think that ends up being a pretty good price tag for us. We know he has that high floor. Also, the key thing here is that he gets a good, I don't want to say good matchup, but the game total is extremely high, 52.5 total points, and is projected to be a close game as well. And so obviously he's been extremely productive since he's returned from his suspension. Almost had 2 touchdowns in that game against Washington. The Raiders, he did go off in that game. It is a more difficult matchup, don't get me wrong, going against Buffalo. You know, the first 2 games he was back, pretty good matchups for him, but I do expect him to continue to get that high target volume, and thus I do think we should be treating him as a core play. The next one is going to be Jamar Chase, okay? There is a slight concern that Joe Flacco could end up sitting, but the Bears secondary, they are going to be missing their top 2 cornerbacks. They are on the IR. Stevenson is expected back. If he were to sit like he was last week, I think we would have been really targeting just a lot of the Bengals pass catchers, but even still, Jamar Chase getting over 10 targets per game with Joe Flacco at the quarterback position. I mean, it's just, we're just going to lock in that floor, right? If we can get someone that's getting 23 and 19 over the past 2 games, yeah, we just want to be chasing that production there. And then running back wise, I want to start off with sorting it by value. So the top projected value running back play is going to be CMC, guys. So I do think we should be treating him as a core play. The industry is also getting there as well. He's one of the highest owned players on the slate. And so, yeah, kind of whatever. We'll take that. Going against the Giants, we do expect that to be a game that they win. And it is a pretty high scoring game as well, 48.5 total points. Then we also have Tyrone Tracy Jr., who we know is going to get at least 70% of the work in this game. Projected to get it right around 16 to 17 opportunities and about 12.7 DFS points. To me, those are 2 clear-cut plays that we should just be targeting then as a result. And I do want to call it Kamani Vidal as well. So he gets a game in which he's going to be a massive favorite, 9.5 point favorites in that game against the Tennessee Titans, okay? He's priced at 6.3, which is kind of an uncomfortable price tag. I understand that, but we are getting someone that's projected to get 2.5 receptions, 11 receiving yards, so 3.5 points in the receiving game, and then he's projected to get about 17 rushing attempts with 76 yards, and a pretty good chance to score a touchdown. So he ends up being a very viable option, and if he scores a touchdown, then he becomes one of the better plays on the slate. Now, I already know some people are going to be like, Eric, what about about Kareem Hunt? He's priced extremely cheap. We're getting Isaiah Pacheco out. He should get about 65% of the work. And I would be like, I agree with you guys. I think I'm fine getting to him as kind of the next best option on the slate. But that's kind of the issue is we are getting plenty of running backs that we can consider as very strong plays. Okay. And as I mentioned in the first look build, guys, like Jonathan Taylor, they're all just kind of correctly priced as we scale down. And I think I've done a good job of highlighting which players are actually a little bit too cheap, especially considering volume and likelihood to be able to exceed that price tag that they're at, or at the very least be able to hit value at their price tag. Whereas some of the other players, there are some risks in there, but I do really like Kareem Hunt. If you guys need to adjust your lineup off of CMC, Vidal, or Tracy, I think Kareem Hunt's a great option. But I do want to talk about one other player as well, guys. So DeAndre Swift has not practiced this week. He's sat out Wednesday's practice and Thursday's practice. If he were to end up sitting in this game, we are getting a massive spot here for Kyle Monangai, who gets a very good matchup here against the Cincinnati Bengals. We could expect him to probably get at least basically these opportunities that he got against the Saints, but even maybe more so because it's a very good matchup against the Bengals, a matchup that we'd want to be targeting. So I do kind of hope that Swift sits so we can get that easy core play. And then it does make the decision making a little bit more difficult for the slate, because like who would we pivot off of for this lineup? Probably Vidal, but it's maybe we just pay up for Puka Nacua instead of like going to Parker Washington. Like that would complicate the slate a little bit, but he would become an elite play, one of, if not the best running back plays on the slate when considering price point. Now, tight end wise, guys, I probably would be considering Colson Loveland a core play again if we got news that Cole Kmet were to sit in this game, but he was limited in practice on Thursday, so I am expecting him to play. Again, looking at the first look build that I put out to you guys, I think a good strategy to go with this week is kind of just punting at tight end, finding the lowest price value tight end play that we can expect to 3x. And so I see the news that Chick Okonkwo ended up sitting the Thursday practice, and if he ends up sitting out this game as well, I wouldn't necessarily consider Gunnar Helm like a core play, but in the sense that we want to jam in a bunch of studs, he'd be the tight end that I'd want to go out of my way to target the most. Okay, and if we just look at his production over the last 4 weeks, it's been pretty darn solid if we were to get that at this price tag. So 10.3, 7.6, 3.5, obviously we don't like that, but then 7.4. So 3 out of the 4 weeks, he's had a good enough result for us. Then if you give him a few extra targets, maybe an extra reception or two, basically 3 more DFS points, that ends up becoming a very strong play at his price tag, especially when you consider that we could then get Rice, Chase, and then CMC in a build together. And I just end up liking that a lot. And so I'm kind of hoping that Okonkwo ends up sitting here. Quarterback wise, I don't necessarily see like a core play. I know Dart is kind of the play everyone's targeting thus far. He's extremely high owned. And I'm fine with that. He does present a pretty high floor typically with his legs. And so I think we can get to him. If we get news that Brock Purdy ends up sitting, which it doesn't seem like he would, I wouldn't mind getting to Mac Jones at his price tag, though, if Brock Purdy were to sit again. Not expecting that. And then I'm kind of okay just punting at DST this week, guys, because I typically like to find the lowest price defense that we can confidently say is not going to go negative. And when I was looking at this, I'm all like who can we get to here? Not really any of them. Even like the Steelers against the Colts, you don't love that. Bills versus KC is supposed to be a shootout. Maybe Houston versus Denver. Okay, but then we're paying $900 more, and we got to really reshape our lineup. And so when I was going down the list, I'm like, Falcons I could see, Raiders I could see going negative, Giants I could see, Titans, Saints I would actually be okay, I think, into, and Vikings I could see going negative as well. But it's just like, whatever, we can just punt at DST, and hopefully it doesn't matter overall too much. Obviously, we want to be paying, ideally we would be playing Chargers, Lions, but obviously we can't do that. So I think we just punt to the Panthers DST. Now, I did go ahead and run some lineups here, and this is the top lineup that we are getting this week. So kind of similar to what the data was already telling us, guys. DK Metcalf, Juwan James, I actually don't mind those plays. I think they're solid. I do view it like George Kittle, price tag-wise, if you can get to him, as the top tight end play in the slate. So I was happy to see that he was popping up there. And then we got Kamani Vidal in there as well. So this ends up being a pretty strong build overall as well. I don't hate it. I kind of like my hand build a little bit better, but if you guys end up on this lineup, I wouldn't really blame you there. And that's kind of the nice part about the lineups that I saw produced this week is I don't have to go in and like group players together. The data is already going to naturally do it. So I really like the way that the projections are being pulled in right now because we don't have to do any manual adjustments too much. Maybe some slight things here or there where we want to gain some leverage on the field. Like Gunnar Helm, I'll probably get to some more. Again, if Kyle Manon guy is someone that ends up being a top play, I would want to just like lock him into like probably 50% of my builds, just considering the matchup. That'd be a crazy spot. And then Parker Washington, obviously his data will update more, probably closer to around 9 to 11 DFS points, I would imagine. But just be on the lookout for that, guys. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Hopefully we have a good week this week. I am feeling more comfortable about this week as the week has progressed. So hopefully that ends up being a good thing. Be on the lookout for tomorrow's video where I'll be breaking down the whole slate, going through the lineup builder for you guys in that video where we talk about stacks, values, and fades. That's going to do it, guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck, and as always, let's keep cashing.